Apostle Shiroko, resurrected by the sacrifice of the 7 martyrs, launched an assault on the Sky Castle, only to be thwarted by the efforts of the adventurers.
このままでは終わらせない。死んでもなお、お前の計画を。
Within this essence lay the final vestige of Shiroko's life, a resolute determination to hinder Hilder's plans regarding the prophecy of Genesis. Shiroko devised a plan to journey through the dimensional storm, reaching out to the apostles of the past and revealing Hilder's sinister machinations. As her will traversed the currents of time, it sought a destination. Whether it was headed towards the true past or a history already distorted remained uncertain. Yet one undeniable truth emerged. Shiroko's will must be prevented from distorting the past, regardless of the consequences to the present.
これは過去。
Amidst the distorted realms, they caught fleeting glimpses of dragons soaring through the ancient Empyrean, thus indicating that it was Bakal's era. Emerging from the storm, the adventurers sought a means to penetrate the distortion and reach the Empyrean of the past. Parting ways with Shiran and Iris, the adventurers embarked on a quest for clues about Bakal in the city of Ghent. But upon arriving, it could be seen that Ghent was in chaos. The nobles of North Peace had launched an ambush upon the assembly of the 7 shards, seeking to seize their invaluable research. Through the efforts of the adventurers, the stolen knowledge was reclaimed, and they received advice from the 7 shards that there is a possible way to enter the distorted dimensions with the help of Bakal's legacy and Herman's blueprints. From their base in the Herring Archipelago, the Ghent army pressed against the nobles, while the adventurers aided the Imperial forces and pushed towards North Peace in search of knowledge regarding Bakal's legacy. Amidst their mission, they rescued Michel Curio, a former member of the 7 Shards. Unbeknownst to them, Anje Wayne, leader of the noble families in North Peace, had secretly allied with the Empire and planned on harnessing an apostle's energy to wage war against the Ghent army. North Peace forces schemed to utilize the energy cannon built in Queen Fault on Ghent, hoping to turn the tables. Yet their plan failed as the adventurers intervened and neutralized the Queen Destroyer. In the aftermath of the battle, the adventurers discovered a potent energy core that had powered the Queen Destroyer. However, harnessing its immense power required the creation of an efficient control mechanism, and even then, a dimensional navigator would be necessary to traverse the distorted dimensions. Michel Curio proposed delving into the Castle of the Dead, the sole gateway connecting Empyrean with other realms, in search of clues for a dimensional navigation device. Their path led them to Chelva, which had been left in tatters due to a confrontation between Solduros and Apostle Cassius. The Castle of the Dead, too, had suffered partial destruction. Confronted by the reanimated constructs crafted by Luke, the adventurers were once again reunited with Becky. Becky was a unique entity among Luke's creations, as she was responsible for controlling the dimensional navigation device within the Castle of the Dead. Having dealt with all abominations resurrected by Giselle, the adventurers, along with Becky, who had chosen to venture beyond the confines of her dwelling, left the Castle of the Dead. After some time, the Varheit, a ship capable of exploring distorted dimensions, was completed with the help of the 7 shards. The adventurers boarded Varheit without delay and set off towards the distorted dimensions, successfully entering the previously impassable rift safely. Finally, the adventurers arrived in the past Empyrean in pursuit of Shiroko's will. They arrived in an Empyrean village far in the past called Namenlos that was very different from the present. The current timeline was that of when the past Empyreans, oppressed by Bakal, had organized a resistance called the Eternal Flame. In this place, the adventurers encountered Meister Tenebe, one of the 7 meisters who had dreamt of liberating Empyrean. In this realm, the use of magic was forbidden by Bakal's decree, and the meisters aimed to free Empyrean by developing a technological civilization. Secretly, they were carrying out Project Gaebolg, their plan to defeat Bakal by using science and constructing a colossal robot. Continuing their investigation on the outskirts of Old Ghent, the adventurers encountered Meister Volgan. Due to their unconfirmed identities, Volgan was initially wary of trusting them. However, he jovially requested their aid in rescuing members of the Eternal Flame who were in danger, ultimately harboring genuine goodwill towards the adventurer who assisted him. This meeting with Volgan provided Michel Curio with certainty about the specific time they were currently in the past. Realizing the brewing conflict between Tenebe and the Eternal Flame, she understood the necessity of repeating history to prevent distortion. Upon returning to Namenlos, the adventurers once again found Tenebe. Tenebe was surprised at Michel Curio's perceptive words, as they seemed to see through his concerns about the secret plan of the Eternal Flame, the Gaebolg project. To test their intentions, Tenebe requested a favor of them. Since he couldn't leave Namenlos due to constant surveillance from the Eternal Flame, he asked the adventurers to retrieve an important device from Nassau Forest, a task they easily accomplished. The adventurers brought the device Tenebe asked for. Gradually, Tenebe began to trust the adventurers, confiding his suspicions about a scientist who recently joined the Eternal Flame. This individual brought rapid progress to the project, raising Tenebe's concerns. Additionally, Tenebe wondered why the dragons hadn't attacked despite knowing their location. Afterwards, Tenebe asked the adventurers to follow him. They embarked on a journey with Tenebe to Nassau Forest. However, the area Tenebe intended to go to was guarded by soldiers of the Eternal Flame. Tenebe's attempts to persuade them failed, and when he tried to bypass them, Captain Stark, the leader of the Eternal Flame resistance, intervened. Captain Stark, the leader of the resistance, the Eternal Flame, he is the only person alive who can use all weapons created by the meisters. Stark questioned Tenebe, suspecting he was hiding something. Tenebe skillfully avoided answering directly, choosing rather to ask why Stark was there. Then, Meister Curio arrived at the scene, revealing the machine parts that Tenebe had been concealing to impede the completion of Gaebolg. They realized it was no longer possible to trust Tenebe. Considering Tenebe's past contributions, Stark held back from immediately capturing him, but warned him against interfering with the completion of Gaebolg before vanishing. The adventurers reassessed the current situation. They realized that the conflict between Tenebe and the meisters was a consequence of Shiroko's will. The adventurers realized that this was something that didn't happen in their original history. The past had been greatly distorted and had the potential to change even further. To ensure that historical events would unfold as they should, the adventurers disclosed to Tenebe that they came from the future. Although finding it hard to believe and feeling perplexed, Tenebe acknowledged that he needed the adventurers' help and made the decision to meet his partner Jen at the Eternal Flame Research Lab. En route to the lab, the adventurers unexpectedly encountered Meister Volgan, whom they had previously encountered atop Leistung. Tenebe requested Volgan's assistance in disabling the security devices at the lab, but Volgan refused, noting Tenebe's suspicious behavior. Ultimately, the adventurers neutralized Volgan's weapons. Tenebe appealed to Volgan to believe in him, based on the trust that they had already established. Volgan concluded that Tenebe wouldn't betray him without reason, and decided to place his trust in him. He then deactivates the security devices. Accompanied by Volgan, the adventurers journey towards Lechtehofen, the underground base of the Eternal Flame, with the aim of persuading Jen and the other Meisters. Volgan, while trying to deactivate the security measures assailing the group, makes a surprising discovery. An unfamiliar chip was attached to the devices, rendering his attempts futile. Michelle, shocked upon seeing the chip, recognized it as technology from future Empyrean utilized by the Seven Shards. Michelle inquired about the identity of the scientist who recently joined the Gaebolg project. Upon hearing Tenebe's response, the adventurers realized that Giselle, who had traveled from the future, was the entity responsible for distorting the past. Giselle Logan, a scientist who had once earned the acknowledgement of the Seven Shards, but left Judah's inferiority complex towards Melvin Richter, one of the Seven Shards. Currently, Giselle had journeyed to the past as part of Hilder's plan. With the aid of Volgan, the adventurers joined forces with Audrey. Audrey was also convinced by Tenebe, and so he decided to put his trust in Tenebe. Through an underground passage, the adventurers proceeded to reach the Eternal Flame Laboratory, intent on persuading the other Meisters. The adventurers successfully persuaded Meister Curio with Michelle, who was his descendant from the future. They broke through the formidable security of the Eternal Flame Laboratory with the support of the Meisters, who chose to continue to trust Tenebe. Finally, they confronted Stark, the leader of the Eternal Flame, who faced them at the laboratory's final line of defense. Tenebe aimed to destroy Gaebolg for the sake of Empyrean, whereas Stark, though having the same purpose, strove to finish it. Tenebe expressed his pity towards Stark, but still proceeded to subdue him. However, at that very moment, a powerful tremor shook the entire laboratory, accompanied by blaring sirens, and slowly Gaebolg can be seen starting up. Gaebolg, influenced by Giselle, defied the course of history and stirred to life, even though it wasn't meant to be completed according to the original timeline. The immense shaking spread across all of Empyrean. With Gaebolg's unforeseen awakening, the distortion of history had intensified. To halt Gaebolg, Tenebe devised a plan for the adventurers to create an opportunity and strike Gaebolg with specially crafted ammunition. Equipped with communication devices for their mission, they received a call through which they heard Jen's voice. Jen asked Tenebe about his betrayal and the current situation. Although Tenebe was unable to disclose all the facts, he implored Jen not to trust Eldir and to have faith in him, as everything he was doing was for the sake of Empyrean. However, the vehicle intended to reach Gaebolg was destroyed, and the adventurers received a transmission from Meister Ratti. Ratti reported about her infiltration of the Gaebolg Control Center and her attempt to seize control of Identitet, the control unit of Gaebolg. Though it was impossible, she promised to continue to impede Gaebolg's controls as best as she could without being caught. After requesting Ratti to hold on a little longer, the adventurers resumed their mission to stop Gaebolg. During the process, Tenebe disclosed that Bakal had sought him out, and that Bakal had claimed he was waiting for Empyreans to gather enough strength to end his life without assistance from other entities. The Empyreans truly believed that Gaebolg was solely their creation, but Tenebe exposed that Eldir was also an apostle just like Bakal, and thus should have been excluded from the process of creating Gaebolg. Trusting Tenebe, the meisters decided to prioritize stopping Giselle. While the adventurers and the other meisters diverted Giselle's attention, Tenebe's specially crafted bullet struck Gaebolg with precision. However, Gaebolg was not completely immobilized and advanced towards the Meister's laboratory. To gain control over the self-recovery system in the laboratory, the adventurers decided to enter the Meister's laboratory. As they prepared their plan and were about to make their move, an unexpected magical intervention swept them away, teleporting them to different locations. The adventurers found themselves scattered in various places. While setting out to locate the others, the adventurer encountered Eldir, who was in fact Hilder. She warned that she would stop at nothing to thwart those who opposed her. Deciding to move separately, the adventurers split into two groups. Kuryo requested for time to be able to take hold of the power control room, while the adventurers kept Dirigent occupied. Kuryo, using all of his skills, managed to gain control of the power control room. However, Tenebe couldn't fully trust Eldir and resolved to accept the consequences of his choice for the sake of preserving Empyrean's history, even if it leads to unintended ruin. The adventurers who had been relentlessly trying to stop Giselle and Gaebolg encountered Stark, now modified by Giselle and Eldir, obstructing their path. Driven by his vengeance against the Dragonkin, Stark pledged to protect Gaebolg until his end. Even after being subdued, he expressed his belief that internal conflicts should not exist among Empyreans, and aimed his gun at the Dragonoids that suddenly emerged from behind them. However, already weary, Stark was struck down by Energy and perished. Leaving with a smirk on her face, Energy commented that she has now rectified her mistake of being held prisoner. Tenebe was shocked upon witnessing Stark's death. Once again, he pondered the consequences of his sacrificial path and the burden he must bear. Eventually, the adventurers caught up to Energy, whom they had been pursuing. Despite Energy's attempt to corner them using the enormous stored energy in the warehouse, the adventurers were able to overcome her traps through quick thinking. Volgan and Audrey also joined forces with the adventurers to bring down Energy. Though Energy tried to unsettle them by revealing that Bakal himself was on his way, Tenebe, seemingly aware of this already, aimed his gun at her. As Volgan and Audrey moved to confront the now approaching Dragonkin, Kuryo and Ratty joined the group of adventurers on their way to stop Giselle at Gaebolg's location. While discussing their situation, they received a transmission from Becky, urging them to swiftly resolve the situation before the dimensional distortion worsened. The adventurers encountered Jen, who was also accompanied by Eldir. Eldir claimed that everything happening was a result of Bakal's fear of the Gaebolg, arguing that Gaebolg should be used to liberate Empyrean. However, Jen and the other meisters unwaveringly believed in Tenebe. Realizing that trying to persuade them was futile, Eldir tried to use magic to kidnap Jen, only to be stopped by Iris. Shiran and Iris declared they would handle Eldir and disappeared with her. After many twists and turns, Tenebe and Jen managed to reunite, while Iris and Shiran had also taken Eldir outside. In order to buy time for the adventurers to stop the Gaebolg, Iris and Shiran faced the human form of the Apostle Hilder. Tenebe requested that Kuryo evacuate the pregnant Jen to a safer location. Although Jen insisted on staying with Tenebe, he managed to convince her that the future they fought for and the future their child would be part of held greater importance. Jen relented and engaged in conversation with Michelle Kuryo. Jen felt a familiarity with Michelle, who revealed herself as Meister Kuryo's descendant. Asking Michelle to watch over Tenebe in her absence, Jen departed with Meister Kuryo. Finally, the battle with Giselle commenced. Giselle grew furious with the adventurers who interfered with his plans. Riding the piloted weapon GB-1 Haps, which he created using all his acquired technology to control the Gaebolg, Giselle faced off against the adventurers. As the battle ensued, Giselle's strength started to wane. He resorted to being consumed by a volatile substance known as Abyss. However, he ultimately succumbed to the adventurers. At that moment, sirens blared within the laboratory, indicating the arrival of the dragons. Tenebe calmly accepted their dire situation, while Rati and Volgan resolved to resist the dragons until the very end. Meister Curio entrusted Michelle with the code to activate all the future Gaebolg's functions and bid her farewell. The adventurers briefly exchanged farewells with the meisters before making their way back to the Varheit to escape the distorted timeline, while the meisters readied themselves to meet their preordained deaths. Tenebe thought about his remaining comrades after the adventurers left. He cast a bitter gaze upon the sky, now teeming with approaching dragonoids. Rati and Volgan valiantly resisted the dragons, utilizing the still imperfect Gaebolg the best they could. Audrey and Curio sought a means to save and escape with Tenebe and Jen's child. Exhausted, Tenebe returned to camp. With the sound of nearing dragons reaching his ears, he brought his gun to his temple as if ready to give up. But in one decisive moment, he rose to his feet and aimed his weapon at the encroaching dragons until the last moment. Meanwhile, the adventurers made it back onto the Varheit. Fortunately, the temporal distortion in their timeline had dissipated, leaving no significant disruptions in the present. However, they soon realized that the other rifts that appeared still remained. Not wasting any time, they prepared to embark towards another rift. The Machine Revolution, the era where the battle between Empyreans and dragons was at its height. The 4 dragonoids that were sworn to Bakal stood in the adventurer's path, along with
歴史の真実を教えてやろう。